You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. You wanted it, you got it. A radio program that helps teach you options trading inside and out, basic to complex. This is Options Bootcamp. Whether you want to learn how to protect your portfolio, generate income, or even become a master of volatility, the Options Bootcamp drill instructors will break it all down for you. Now, let's get you into peak options trading shape. Here are your Options Bootcamp drill instructors.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Education Wednesday. Once again, time for the premier options education program. Yes, it is time for Options Bootcamp. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider. We're the only one, except no substitute, as well as from the Options Insider Radio Network. Reminding you, if you do like what you hear, feel free to throw some stars our way. It does help the new folks continue to discover the content, just like our buddy Shaz did this week. Shaz says, 5 stars. I wish this show was every day. There's a lot to cover in the options market. Well, you are right. There is a lot to cover in the world of options. Luckily for you, Shaz, and everyone else who is so inclined, I don't know if OBC every day is a practical thing, but there is a full network for you folks to binge. So there's stuff hitting you pretty much every day, usually twice a day on the network. On Monday, you get an option block and the crypto rundown. Tuesday, for our pro folks, we're getting pro Q&As and something else is usually slotting in there for the on-demand folks, the advisor's option or something else like that. Wednesday, of course, you're getting, in today's case, a double dose of Options Bootcamp. Saw Brian Overby down at OIC last week, so maybe we'll try to see if we can get him back on some OPR here sooner rather than later as well. Get that back in your life. Of course, Thursday, you're getting This Week in Futures Options and episode 2 of the Option Block, which I'll be doing live from the SIBO tomorrow, so that should be interesting. And then Friday, we have Volatility Views, and for the pro folks after that, Options Oddities. So there's a lot of content hitting you throughout the week there. Who was that? Shaz. So if you're not listening to the full network, that's probably the best place to start. I wish we could do an OBC every day. I'm not sure if that's practical. Dan, what do you think? Shaz wants us to do this every day. Are you down for that?
I'm down for it, man. Let's do it, Mark. What the heck? Are you slacking on the job? No, I'm just kidding. But that might be a lot. I was
going to say, well, you threw me a curveball there, sir. I expected you to be no effing way. But here we go. Shaz, see, he still has some surprises left in him. And you guys always have some surprises in store for us. Let's get to him right now. A little bit of the old mail call.
Mail call. Time to look at questions submitted by our listeners.
All right, everybody. It's that time. It is time to answer some questions, including the questions that filter to us from the bastion of education known as Market Taker Mentoring. So, Mr. P, the moment we have all been waiting for is upon us. What is the Market Taker question of the week?
The question of the week is, when are you most likely to get assigned? When are you most likely to get assigned? And you are most likely to get assigned when there is little or no time value left in your in your option. So if you're short a very deep in the money option and it's all intrinsic value, that's when you start thinking, hey, maybe I'm likely to get assigned here. Now, it's a little different with calls and puts. With calls, you tend to get assigned the day before the X date if it's in the money, so that the person who is long those calls can capture the dividend. And if you are short puts, it's more about interest because the market makers who's long that in the money put is long about 100 shares against that and paying interest, or at least opportunity cost interest on that. So, just start looking at your options. And when they're very, very deep in the money with very little time premium left, you might think about closing that down.
Close them down, listeners. We're never going to close down, though, listeners. It's our own question of the week because we like getting your sentiment on a bunch of the pressing issues of the day. And Dan, they don't get much more pressing than all things 0 day. This was the hot topic down at OIC last week. People were debating whether we should extend this to single names. The NASDAQ came out pretty openly in favor of that. A lot of exchanges, a lot of brokerage firms want more single day, more 0 day trading. Others saying they're a little bit more reticent. Fidelity saying, if you want to trade this stuff at the end of the week on the Friday, for example, they want you to have $1 million or more in your account. So a lot of different viewpoints on this stuff. They are still pretty contentious. But also adding fuel to that fire was, of course, last week was the launch of the 1 day VIX. Yes, SIBO going full in on this trend, listeners, launching a 1 day version of the VIX to coincide with all this 0 day trading. So we thought we'd ask you folks last week, do you think this short-term measure of volatility will be useful for your trading, or is it just another meaningless number to clutter up your trading screen? And Dan, I have the results here. No cheating. What do you think our audience went with?
Well, this is a tough one, Mark. This is a very, very, very tough one. Let's see here. I would say I trade short term.
So it's saying, yes, they like it. They're into it. They're yes. Fans of 1 day VIX. Well, yes. You could not be more wrong, sir. Our audience, I was surprised, overwhelmingly, 74.4% saying, no, this is yet another meaningless number to clutter up my trading screen. Only 25.6% saying, yes, I trade short term. I'm interested in this. So I thought it'd be closer to split maybe, but no. No love, Dan. Does that surprise you?
It does kind of, because like the existing like VIX contract that we have, everybody's used to it and we trade it, but it's a really weird contract if you think about it. And so this 1 day VIX, it kind of solves a lot of the problems that the traditional VIX has. I don't know. Yeah, it does surprise me. It really does.
Yeah, we tend to have a little bit more bleeding edge audience, at least out there on Twitter. This show a little bit more new to the world of options, but I thought they'd be a little bit more open to it. But nope, no joy whatsoever here. And that is, of course, the definitive word we know at the end of the day. SIBO might as well delist it now. All right, let's keep on rolling. Let's go actually out to the live, Dan. They got some questions coming in from our live listeners. Remember, listeners, if you folks want to join the live, listen to the shows instantaneously, you want to heckle Dan live or any of our other co-hosts we have on our shows throughout the week, also get exclusive shows. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go. Just like Nichols. Nichols wants to know, Dan, you're talking about your retreat at the end of our last show. You said it's an in-person event. Nichols wants to know, does Dan offer a remote option for his retreat? Is it live streamed anywhere? Dan, what do you have to say about that, sir? Any live streaming options for the big retreat?
No, we thought about it. But it's a big distraction. And so, yeah, we don't, unfortunately. But hey, make your way on out to Sonoma. It's a very nice part of the country. We do it out there. It's nice and quiet. We get to focus on nothing but trading for 3 full days. So, yeah, just get on a plane, man. Let's go.
And if I can say so myself, Dan, a pretty sexy man to see up close. You're going to want to see him in person. The live stream won't do it justice, Dan. What do you think?
Oh, yes. I'm going to wear my shortest skirt.
Yes. That's not worth the money. I don't know what is there, Nichols. So, yeah, Nichols, if you can make it out there, I get it. People's time, people's budgets are all different. But if it's available for you, Nichols, Could be an interesting option, pun intended. See what I did there? Another one coming in live. This is for you as well, Dan. I guess I'm chopped liver today. Option God wants to know, what is Dan rating these days? And he put it all in caps, so he's really intent on this question, sir. Shouting it at us.
I'm not doing a whole bunch of the short squeeze stuff. I mean, I keep my mind open to it, and I do. Well, actually, I did have a short squeeze trade on, I want to say last week, if I'm not mistaken, but I've been focusing a whole bunch on earnings lately because we're in the thick earnings season. That's one of the big things we do here. And then, just some of our genius spreads like credit spread genius, time spread genius.
You're doing more genius and less rating these days?
Yes. And like really a lot of earnings. Oh, my goodness.
That's why I'm not hearing many dings in the background while we're doing the show here.
Yeah.
Not as many rating pops. People used to like that. Like, oh, they have a drinking game. Whenever they hear the buzz in the background, the little bing that Dan's doing a trade, that they know they can have a sip of their beverage of choice. All right. Let's keep on rolling here. Let's go to Cody. Cody wants to know, where do you guys get your options data for your shows? Well, a lot of different answers to that question, Cody. I'll start with what we were just talking about on just the last episode, which for you folks was last week. For us was just a few minutes ago. This is another one of our double header extravaganzas. We were talking about earnings season data. For that, we have that data courtesy of our friends over there at ORATS. It stands for Options Research and Technology Services. Their founder, Matt, has been on this show in the past. He's also a regular with me on our Advisors Options show. They do a lot of great back testing and analysis, which is why I thought they were great people to help compile these earnings reports. And they really took my suggestion and ran with it in a lot of interesting new ways that I never even considered. They put the historical data in there for you. They put other trades that they're putting on that their algorithms are finding and tracking how those performed. A lot of interesting things. They take the whole season and aggregate it out for you so you can see it in one number as well. So that data comes from ORATS. And then a lot of the other data, like you hear us doing the show with SIBO and our buddy Henry, the Flow Master, on Mondays and Thursdays there. With Trade Alert, we use a lot of Trade Alert data as well. They are very much kind of the source for analyzing and parsing flow here in the options world. Now, that's an institutional grade tool, so I wouldn't recommend it for listeners of this show, but that will allow you to do a lot of unusual activity scanning and pretty much any name that comes across your radar. Someone throws a question to me at a show, for example, saying, hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think about this name? Or some news breaks in a particular name. I'm able to throw it in Trade Alert on the fly while I'm doing the show and come up with all sorts of metrics, what the top positions are, what the historical volume and open interest and ADV and, all the 90-day historical vol and all these things. I can look at these positions and see when they were opened and kind of do all that on the fly, which for me, for this use case on a show like this, is ideal. So I love Trade Alert. It's very text-based. It's not graphical. Some people prefer graphical interfaces. This is very much enter your data, and it kind of pulls the data from the database and puts it out in numerical form there. There are some charts, but they're kind of few and far between. And also, it's designed for pros. They played around with the retail version. I'm not sure if they really offer that anymore. That was called What's Trading. Those are two of the primary sources that we're using show to show. Then on top of that, we'll sprinkle in some seasoning from a lot of the different brokerage firms, looking at what their scanning tools have to offer, what their analysis, what their skew, what their chains are saying. That's a twofold thing. First, it allows us to have extra data, and also gives us a chance to stay on top of what the latest offerings are from the different brokerage firms. So for me and for our use case here on the network, who was that, Cody? That's where we get the lion's share of our data. Mr. Dan, when you're crunching numbers over there at MTM, where are you guys getting your data from?
We do get a fair amount of it from Henry. Some of our stuff is built on the backbone of him. And some we just pull from Thinkorswim. Where else? Yeah, we've got a few data sources.
Yeah, we call him the Flow Master for a reason at the end of the day. He has his fingers on the pulse of a lot of great flow out there. Let's keep on rolling. Let's go to BC. BC wants to know, I'm a mobile-first options trader. Which broker should I be looking at? We were just talking about this a couple episodes ago, BC, when we did kind of our broker breakdown, what you should be looking for. with a new options broker. Unfortunately, I mentioned on that show, Dan and I are not the ideal use case for the mobile first options trader because we're not, obviously. We're surrounded by screens all day long. So I very rarely utilize the mobile functionality on my different brokerage platforms. Once in a while, if I'm traveling, maybe I'm in the Southern studio and I need to pull up a trade on the fly. Even then, I usually have screens with me. So I'm not the ideal person to answer this question. I'm not sure Dan is either. But that said, I did mention on that show, maybe it's time for a bit of a rundown. So maybe I will take it upon myself with some of the other co-hosts here on the network to kind of do a bit of a rundown of the different mobile offerings of the different brokers. And we can kind of look and say, hey, this one's maybe interesting. This one, not so much from an options perspective. I mentioned recently I was using one in one of our legacy IRA accounts and discovered to my chagrin, you can't even cancel or close trades, existing orders, I should say, on the mobile app, which is a deal breaker. So you don't want to find that out on the fly like I did. So it might be a good time to do a rundown. Dan, do you have any thoughts on the mobile offerings from the different brokers? And maybe if you have one you prefer or don't, share it with our folks, sir.
Well, honestly, I don't do a whole bunch of trading on the mobile apps. I mean, the two I've got accounts with, pretty much all of the major brokers. But the two that I trade the most with right now are Thinkorswim and Fidelity. And I have used their mobile apps like when I'm traveling, but I don't know. 97% of the time I'm sitting here at the control center in MTM HQ and I'm in front of my laptop. There's like the seat of my chair has got my butt imprints on it. I'm in this chair so much, every single day. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really use the mobile app that much.
Yeah, who was this, BC? Yeah, we're just not the ideal use case for that. But I'm going to endeavor to do another run through. Maybe Dan, you want to join me? You want to join me on a little mobile app hunt? See what's good out there, what's bad?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Mark. Let's do it.
Maybe you can even use it in one of your MTM newsletters, something like that too. So you get 2 for 1. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds fun, man. That sounds great.
All right, so there you go, BC. You've given us some homework. We will sink our teeth into that and get back at you. Let's go back out to the live here. Let's go to Options Queen, another one of our pro members. She says, you guys are just talking about straddles. Would you say you're more long or short straddle traders? Interesting, Dan. We were just talking about straddles on our last episode. I know sometimes you trade them, sometimes you don't. If you had to pick a direction, if you had to say one way that you really tend to approach straddles, would it be from the long side or the short side?
I almost always buy straddles. We do have a couple of our student traders who have really taken a shine to the niche of selling straddles, and they figured out how to be good at it. And you can, but there's a lot of risk in it. So I prefer the long ones, which are challenging, but that's just I prefer the long ones.
I don't trade a ton of straddles personally, Options Queen. When we do talk about them, usually that's a good sign that markets are rocking and rolling. Like really the last time we dove deep into straddles on the network here, as I mentioned on the episode we just did, was back in 2021. And there was a reason for that. The market was moving. Underlyings were moving. Dan was coming on this show talking about long straddles. Brian on his OPR show was coming on talking about long straddles and things like SPY. And you know what? Those trades were actually working. They were making money, which shows in and of itself what a rarefied time that was back in Q1, Q2 of 2021. But outside of those scenarios, very rarely am I saying, hey, I want to buy a straddle. If I am, or I'm going to sell a straddle. If I am going to do it, I'm probably going to do it more in a risk mitigated way. I probably would prefer the iron butterfly, which is going long or short, the at the money straddle, and then doing an out of the money strangle against it. So in the case of the long straddle, you're clipping your outlay. So obviously your outlay is your main risk with a long straddle. So you're reducing your risk on that position. Obviously, you're reducing your max profit as well. But on the flip side of that, see, if you're going to sell a straddle, you don't want the thing to blow up in your face. You have pretty much unlimited risk in either direction. So a nice out-of-the-money strangle to prevent the worst-case scenario. That's the way I tend to go. So if I'm going to sling a straddle, it's probably going to be more of the iron butterfly type. But once in a while, if something's banging, something's about to fall out of bed or explode, and it's right about to happen, you can do worse than have a straight up long straddle in your back pocket here. Let's see. We're coming up against it here already. Let's see how many more we can squeeze in. Let's go to a couple here on the crypto side. Let's go to CJ Gann first. CJ wants to know, is BITO the best choice for U.S. options traders looking to trade crypto? Any issues that I should be aware of before I dive in? The short answer to this is probably yes. I mean, we do a crypto rundown show. It's all about this here, CJ. So I encourage you to check that out. We talk about BITO there a lot as well. But for a lot of the audience of this show, you're going to be primarily domestic, primarily trading in securities accounts. So BITO is kind of really your only game in town. Especially listening to a show like this, you probably want an optionable product. BITO is it. You can't trade options on the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And those are really the only two liquid products you can put in your securities account that are Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin surrogates. There are a couple of other ETFs, Valkyries and things that launched after BITO, but they have no liquidity, no volume. BITO really took all the oxygen in the room. And Grayscale Trust has its issues. On top of it being not optionable, which is a deal breaker for me, and I know a lot of you, it's got this crazy discount, which could be attractive, but also a little scary. Why is this product trading at nearly 50% discount? Something must be weird with it. Something must be wrong with it. So they don't just give you free money at the end of the day on the street. So that's a little bit intriguing. Things you should be aware of. I will say this. We have noticed in the last month or so, the ADV has come in quite a bit in BITO options. It was close to 100,000 contracts a day. Now it's closer to 40. So it has come in quite a bit. I'm not sure why that is over the last month. I mean, Bitcoin has been moving, so you think BITO would be trading it up. For whatever reason, that is not the case right now. Also, we're not seeing any of the attractive setups we have seen out there in the past. Bitcoin and to a degree, BITO will develop interesting bids to the call wing or to the put wing, which make things like covered call to the upside or, downside puts or ratio put spreads and things attractive to the downside. We're not seeing any of those right now. The skew is kind of flat. So that could be one of the reasons why the options volume is drying up a little bit. There's not really a lot of incentive for a lot of those premium harvesting strategies we've seen in the past. On the flip side, vol is low and the skew is pretty flat. So maybe if you want to buy some premium, now might not be the worst time. So intriguing stuff out there. Dan, I know when I've been to some of your in-person mentoring, a lot of times you have BITO up on the screen. So I know a lot of your mentees like BITO. But what do you have to say for CJ? He wants to know, you think BITO is the best choice for U.S. options traders looking to dive into crypto, sir?
Yeah, it's not a bad choice. And, it's one of them where it is a little bit more sophisticated than just doing the underlying crypto itself. And with stuff like that, where it's a little bit more complicated, if you put in the effort to figure it out, you might find some nuances that you can capitalize on a little bit. So, and the thing that I've said all along, which, I got some affirmation recently, is that these are underwritten by a real exchange, not some exchange written by, some 20-year-old guy in his mom's basement. It's not going to go, the CBOE is not going to go bust. They've got the power of the OCC behind them. So, yeah.
There you go, listeners. Another question along those same lines. This comes from Lance. Lance Peter says, do you think we'll ever see an ETHO product? I like that, ETHO product on ETH, similar to the BITO ETF for Bitcoin options traders? Yeah, I think we will. Question of when. It's not going to be anytime soon here, Lance. They had to wait until the Bitcoin futures over there at CME, which these will be listed on the ETH futures on CME as well. They had to wait until those futures really gained volume enough so that the regulators really, at the end of the day, would be comfortable with this thing. And so we have to wait a similar period here for the ETH futures to really build up a head of steam. They just launched not that long ago. They're not quite there yet. I think for a lot of us, ETH is their preferred vector for crypto as opposed to Bitcoin. So they would probably prefer an ETHO, as you put it. It's just not quite there yet. Dan, is that your takeaway as well?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, crypto, especially Ethereum and Solana and some of the other ones, will have value one day. I strongly believe as Web3 develops. And the only way to make it work is, A, for crypto to come back into favor again, because Oh boy, because right now it's like just the redheaded stepchild. I apologize to all the redheaded stepchildren out there, but it's not like supply and demand a really great time to offer new product like that. But once crypto does come back more into favor and starts getting hot, what it takes to be pretty successful launching these new products, that's what the exchange would refer to these as. For the exchange to be successful with it, it requires a lot of trading. And one of the ways to get a lot of trading is to make it possible for arbitrageurs to lean on it. And so what Mark and that's kind of, I'm jumping on when what Mark said before. If the CME lists an Ethereum future and the CBOE lists its version of it, and then there's a little bit of sort of back and forth arbing among those two, or between those two exchanges, then launching on top of that an ETF, then there's sort of a three-way arb that can happen, and there's a lot of trading, and there's a lot that you can lean on, not to mention the spot as well. And so it's it takes sort of this snowball effect. You can't just launch Ethereum options and figure it'll work. It's got to be really, really well timed, which makes it it's a pretty interesting business when you get in the nuts and bolts of how these derivatives contracts really work.
Speaking of time, we are out of it for this week, sir. But before we go, if folks want to check out all you got cooking in the land of MTM, where should they go? What should they do?
Make your way on over to markettaker.com. We would love to chat with you, and we'd love to see you in person. And we're going to be in person June 22nd through 24th of this summer in Sonoma, California. And we're just about at the end of accepting signups. We just talked about it today. I want to say the final day to sign up for that is May 15th or something like that, which is surprisingly right around the corner. It was just New Year's Eve yesterday. So yeah, I mean, you got like 12 days to make a decision. So if you do, and if you want to join us, come on over to markettaker.com and we'll get you all signed up.
Check them out, markettaker.com. Don't forget the second T for Theta. That's going to do it for us here on the network today. Back again tomorrow, double dose of This Week in Futures options, as well as the option block. And then back again next week, another episode of Options Bootcamp. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.